Hello everyone, this is Dr. Mohammed Saim Khan and we are in week 2 of this business tourism course, and let's talk about the support services in this particular video. We'll be discussing venues, transports, accommodation and some other support services. So let's start. So in MICE, one of the most important aspect is the venue of the meetings, conventions and exhibitions. A large number of destinations do not get much of business that they want because they do not have that kind of venues that are needed for MICE business. For holding international level of meetings, conferences and exhibitions, one has to seriously work on the type of venues that are available in the destination. For planning MICE, the industry should first consider the following: determining the number and capacity of existing venues for meetings, conferences, and exhibitions, determining the degree of use of these venues, establishing expected future demand for these venues, determining the adequacy of existing venues to meet this expected demand, outlining any serious design faults with existing venues. For example, if I would like to present New Delhi as an upcoming destination for MICE, there should be an inventory made of the existing venues that can hold meetings, conferences, and exhibitions. It should also be tabulated as to what are the capacities of these venues and what is amiss. But most importantly, one should determine as to what are the international standards existing in the venue complexes worldwide. One should also determine the expectations of the clients in this regard, along with existing and emerging trends in this sector. Venues should also be properly designed so as to facilitate the guests and let them conduct their business with total concentration. For example, two conventions going on simultaneously should be well planned in a number of ways. There should be proper spacing between the two conventions going on so as not to disturb either. Due to lack of convention centers, sometimes hotels and centers resort to thin partitions between two meetings, in the process disturbing both and maybe losing both the clients for good. One of the main concerns identified by the industry is regarding transport. And this involves not only ground transport but also air transport. The main problem is related to insufficient and inconvenient airline timetables. For example, in India, most of international airlines arrive at either midnight or after midnight, which means that a business traveler has to either arrive a day before or at midnight to attend a meeting, exhibition, or a conference. This is slightly inconvenient for this category of travelers because they are hard pressed for time and also want to arrive fresh for their work. Since this is not possible, India lags behind in getting a good amount of MICE tourists. However, these problems are unlikely to be resolved because MICE market accounts for a very small share of the total airline business. Furthermore, the surface transport should also be according to the international standards. This scenario is slightly problematic for the development of MICE. Other aspects that need attention at the planning stage in this regard include selection of the type of coaches for road transport, trained drivers and escorts, etc. Generally, these services are contracted out to tourism transporters. Since MICE is not a seasonal business, it has to be planned the entire year round. Yes, you heard it right. So, in this regard, accommodation becomes a very important criterion. MICE tourists usually prefer accommodation setups near their meeting, conference, or exhibition venues. Further, these accommodation units have to be equipped to handle their business requirements. In the sense, they have to be able to meet the needs of the guest. Things like fax machines, laptop provisions, internet connections, telex, etc., need to be there for this kind of, for this kind of a guest. Further, the staff has to understand the requirements of these travelers. Resorts and convention centers specializing in mice, in fact, provide special training to their staff for handling these business travelers and their equipments like beamers, projectors, both movie and overhead, etc. Any mega event requires years of planning and construction activity. For example, when the Asian Games were held in New Delhi, quite a few star category hotels, restaurants, and flyovers, etc., were constructed. In fact, a full Asiad village complex was constructed for the purpose. Now, let's talk about some other support services. So, other support facilities are secondary considerations that organizers take into account when selecting venues. These facilities are essential as they can complement organizers' plans and services provided to attendees. Well, we have loading area for large event, especially exhibitions. Sufficient loading areas is a huge plus for organizers when choosing a venue. Standardized, you know, loading docks sorry, when choosing a venue. Standardized loading docks must have the exact height as the containers to simplify the process of moving containers in and out with forklifts. And let's talk about the interpretation system. Well, imagine an international convention with attendees coming from different countries. Interpretation system can ensure their understanding simultaneously when the program is running. Simultaneous interpretation usually requires experts who can interpret content from the source language to the target or languages as fast as possible, leaving the context unchanged. Well, and next we have translators and other support services. So many MICE events are international, which includes attendees and guest speakers from all over the world. Translators are required at many MICE events to ensure a full understanding of all information gets to the attendees from every nation. Interpreter in MICE events, especially conventions, include simultaneous interpreters who are experts who can interpret content from the source language to the target languages as fast as possible, leaving the context unchanged. And safety and security issue is another important factor when organizers choose hosting venues. So, venues with appropriate and effective safety and security measures is important for MICE events, especially for ones with important figures attending, since these people usually require utmost protection. Uh, Waste management system. So, waste, water management, and garbage management system can add value to services venues. To add value to these services, so venues can provide as well as support green meeting initiatives to ensure the smoothness of the event is through ensuring over other possible risks. In most cases, venues usually insure against these risks. And another one is cancellations. So, with insurance, venue operator can hedge themselves against these risks. Venues will be compensated for cancellations upon previously agreed reasons of cancellations. Attendees' welfare in case of like accidents within venues, on attendees, venue operators are usually liable to those damages on the attendees. And in case of unexpected incidents that cause damage on any part of the building, insurance can be an effective tool to compensate for the damages. Insurance is not mandatory for any venue operators, though having insurance can insure venues over, numerous risks. Okay, MICE events often consists of a myriad of details that should not be overlooked, as they often provide that final touch that can both complement and complete an event. This also applies to the wide array of equipment needed at an event program, including speakers, stage props, lighting and audio control, matching curtains and carpets, and specific furniture. And at the end of each day, or each day of, or at the end of each event, the space utilized needs to be tidied up and ready for the next day or the next event. So, cleaning company and services, catering company. Catering services are an essential factor to complete a MICE event. Catering companies can manage serving large numbers of snacks, meals, and beverages efficiently and at a standardized quality. And logistic companies, well, organizers usually require external specialized service providers that can provide logistic services with a high level of expertise. Logistics include uh, transporting exhibits to be used in exhibitions from their origin countries to the destinations, and transporting attendees from one place to another. This must also be managed under time and budget constraints, restrictions, and tedious customs and immigration processes. Next, let's talk about tour guides. Tour guides are most essential in the incentive travel sector. With their specific knowledge about the local area, they can provide services to MICE travelers by taking them to local attractions and by providing necessary assistance along with cultural and historical information. And professional event registration company, well, MICE events commonly involve a substantial number of people attending from across the globe. To minimize complications in the registration processes for attendees and VIP guests, organizers often employ an external provider to handle registration, as they can provide an efficient service based on expertise, software, and technology designed to support registration in an organized and simplified manner. Commercial bank services provided by commercial banks that serve the MICE industry uh, are current, exchange services and letter of credit. In addition, commercial banks can act as facilitators for any transactions made in the MICE events among buyers, sellers, and attendees. Online, and let's talk about the credit card company. Online transactions have been receiving greater popularity and often used regularly in the recent days. Professional registration companies, together with credit card companies, are usually collaborating to provide this option of payment for attendees. Transaction on site, especially in exhibitions, can also be done using credit card. Apart from wiring the money internationally, which credit card companies in collaboration with exhibitors can facilitate this service for attendees. And Ministry of Tourism, well, directly this ministry promotes and support tourism recreation sectors. Their policy also guides the way the MICE industry is directed and promoted, keeping in mind the close link between MICE industry and tourism. Through marketing and promotional campaigns, awareness created among tourists that can also be leveraged by the MICE industry, especially for the corporate meetings and incentive travel sectors. So, we discussed venues and other essential components, highlighting how important they are. We considered accommodations and transportation essential logistical elements that guarantee flawless event experiences. The importance of other support services, which highlighted the extensive infrastructure required for successful events, completed our investigation. So, thank you for listening, and that's it. And we'll meet in the next video. Have a nice day.